Hey, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is great. Longtime news guy, right? Writing sports in the Lansing area and others.
Yeah, no, I came back here in 2012, grew up here, and bucket list job to be the sports columnist at the Lansing State Journal, and got the job. So to
Really?
speak. Yeah,
And you grew up here in Lansing?
I did. West side of Lansing, went to Lansing Sexton.
And besides working for the State Journal, where else have you worked?
I worked in Western Illinois in a little town called Freeport, the land of the lost, they call it. 30
Western
miles.
Illinois would be
Yeah.
close to Iowa, or
Yeah, we covered all the way to the Iowa border, pretty much east of Rockford, south to a place called Polo,
and what time period was that?
early 2000s, 2002 to 05.
And did you go to Michigan State?
I did not. I went to Columbia College in Chicago, little liberal arts school downtown.
Well,
Yeah.
well, let's do this chronologically, I guess.
Okay.
So you're born and raised in Lansing.
Correct. Yeah.
What part of Lansing?
Just over by like Lansing Sexton, the old St. Lawrence Hospital,
Right.
that region near West Side, the old historic West Side neighborhood.
North of Oakland?
South of Oakland.
Oh, okay,
So,
because
yeah.
I think Chris Nickoloff grew up over there north of Oakland, and obviously he was a Sexton guy. And
Yeah,
what year would you have graduated from Sexton?
97.
What did your parents do?
My dad worked for he was the editor of the bill analysis section for the House Fiscal Agency.
Okay.
And he did that job for pretty much my whole life that I knew him. And then my mom taught at LCC.
Lansing Community College.
Correct, yeah.
It used to be Lansing Catholic Central, but they changed it. So
It's funny, when I came back, I didn't know they had made that change. And so
Right.
in the stories I wrote early on, I was putting it the old way, and people
Right.
are like, you can't. I'm like, this is the way it is.
right. It's for some of us, it's hard to change. And I don't know what elementary school you would have gone to if you lived over in that neighborhood.
Verlinden. It's now
Verlinden.
a daycare center,
Yeah.
Scribbles and Giggles or whatever, but it was Verlinden Elementary.
And then middle school would have been Pattongill or
Otto Middle School.
Otto Middle School,
Yeah.
sort of on Old 27s up
Correct,
there.
yeah.
And then you went to Sexton and
Yep.
graduated in '97.
Correct, yep.
So you were right in the middle of the Nick Saban era,
Correct, yeah.
and just at the beginning of the Mateen Cleaves,
Yep, yep.
right?
He's a year older than me in school. Yeah.
And yet you leave Michigan State in the early glory days, I think, right?
Yeah.
And go to a small school. Sexton would have been probably pretty decent size then.
Yeah, 1,500 kids was a big place
Right.
back then. Yeah, no, I think if I went to Lansing Community College for a couple of years. I think if I had gone out, I think if I had not gone to LCC, I would have stayed home and gone to
Did you
Michigan
know in high school that you wanted to be in journalism?
State. I thought so. I worked in the student newspaper, the Great Zodiac at Sexton High School back
Yeah.
in those days, and wrote some cranky columns back then too. So, yeah, I had a feeling. But it wasn't that long before that I thought I was still going to be the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. So
Oh,
that
really?
was
Did you play sports in high school?
I played soccer and tennis. Yeah,
Soccer at Sexton wasn't like a
we were
big-
not great. We were not great.
And tennis, I was actually made the tennis team for a minute my senior year. but,
Okay.
I don't remember us being very good. We had Ron DeLeon and Brian Crown on that team.
I was a good tennis player.
Were you?
Yeah, I was a good tennis player.
Where'd you grow up playing tennis? Over there at the park?
Yeah, and at Court One, and
Right.
and around. Yeah, I was the one court club kid on the team. So
Yeah, there you go. But you sort of give up any dreams of either one of those to go to a small liberal arts school in Chicago.
Yeah, I wasn't that good, and the level of like pro. But yeah, no, I wanted to live in a big city, and even when I knew I wanted to do this, I didn't know if I'd get to live in a big city again, and so I
Right.
made that decision.
And what's that like?
Oh, it's fun when you're 19 years
in
old,
Ch- in
21, 20,
Chicago?
yeah, especially when you turn
You went
21.
to LCC first,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And did you get your 2 years there?
I did 2 years there. Yep.
And you're writing for their paper?
I
or
did.
no?
In fact, it was really formative. I'm a big proponent of LCC. I worked for the Lookout,
Right.
and I did radio.
Still the same name.
Yep, did radio. Did the it was the WLNZ at the time.
Yeah.
And did the men's and women's basketball games on the radio. Cut my teeth. Got a lot of confidence at LCC in those 2 years.
Yeah, so LCC's gone through a lot of transformations since you were there in 98, 99. But I think, maybe Mike Ingram was probably the only one consistency. I don't know if he was there then, but man, he's been there a long time.
Yeah, I just talked to him the other night. He was there. I used to play in
Was
his
he?
open gyms on Sunday nights. So yeah, with the team. Yeah, it
Good,
was-
good for you. And so tell me what it's like in in Chicago, going to a small liberal arts school. It was Columbia.
Yeah, well, it was an amazing place because what it was you were kind of a big fish in a small pond, but you were also in this massive city, right? So
Right.
a lot of the adjunct professors were working at CBS Chicago or wherever they were. They were in the business and they were at the height of their careers, and so that was great experience. I really enjoyed it, and did an internship there for Pam Zeckman, who was a legend at the CBS at the investigative unit, and
Right.
that sort of stuff was incredible.
I mean, are you thinking, my dream is to be like a Tim Stout? Or, obviously he's not a writer.
Yeah,
per
no,
se.
I wanted to be in broadcast originally. I
Okay.
did. I fell in love with the newsroom and the newspaper and the writing and the deadlines and all that stuff. I mean, there is nothing, it's changed now quite a bit, but there was, even in my early days working in Western Illinois, there is nothing like the last hour on deadline in a newsroom and the just the vile things you say to each other to try to make deadline. It's just the energy, the hormones, everything. It's great. I
And
love it.
in the late '90s, were we? How were they printing newspapers back then?
Well, like they used to, like everybody had a printing press.
With the printing press, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had a website, but it wasn't like the Focus the way it is now.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's different. Yeah.
And so, do you remember the way they used to print all the high school games and every
Yeah,
junior
everything,
sport in
everything.
the State Journal? I
Yeah.
mean, did you go up reading those things?
I did. I grew up, reading Jack Ebling, and all those guys,
Right.
and I used to sit in the morning with my brown sugared oatmeal by my parents' heating register, reading the box scores and everything.
Right.
Every morning.
Every
Yeah.
high school event was every high
was
school
incredible.
sport was covered.
In that sense, it was way better than it is now. Like
Yeah.
if you open a newspaper back then and that page to the inside of a sports
Right.
page, that everything, there's nothing like that. And just sort of, I mean, now you can look up the standings, but to have it all in one place,
All the golf,
anything you want.
high school golf tournaments and the scores and tennis and every
Everything.
score.
Yeah, when you're a high school kid, you see your name in there. all
What do
that
you
stuff.
think? Do you think that loss, and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Do you think the when we lost that, it became, it was part of the reason why people went to club sports? Because high school, when you saw your team
Yeah.
in the newspaper, right? Whether it was golf or tennis, I mean, it had a certain amount of credibility.
That's
and-
a good question. I hadn't thought of it like that. I think there is some. I think when we lost neighborhood schools, that was part of it too, because there was a pride
Right.
to. I grew up here. I'm going here. I watched
Right.
the older kids in the neighborhood go here, and now I get to play. And
Right.
I think that that hurt too. But yeah, it might have had something to do with it. We were probably headed down that road. But yeah, there's great loss in the local the changes in local news. Some places don't have newspapers at all anymore. But
Right.
to me I mean there are elements, if you could do it over and how you would try to create an experience for people today, you would try to hang on to some things.
some things, right?
Yeah, just because it was just better.
What you graduate on time, or what supposedly is on time in 4 years?
In
or
college, it
five?
took
Yeah.
me 5 years. I was having too much fun in Chicago, so I stayed an extra year.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah, you're 22 years old living on the north side of
Are
Chicago.
you following Michigan State sports the whole time? I mean, are you a diehard or not?
So I was a Michigan State fan growing up.
Right.
I would say I was in college too. That didn't change until my early 20s, and I don't think you can do this job if you're a fan. I don't think you can,
yeah.
because you can't be emotionally invested. You know what I mean? I can't. If Carson Cooper misses
doing what job?
being a columnist
Yeah.
at the Lansing State Journal or covering a team, frankly, you shouldn't
Right.
be emotionally invested. So if Carson Cooper misses 2 free throws to lose a game,
Yeah, which we saw.
yeah, and I'm pissed off at him,
Yeah.
and I go and interview him, and I'm mad because they lost, and I'm feeling the loss. That affects the situation. That's not a conversation. That's me.
Can you be a fan and still be objective? I mean,
You can, sure,
I mean,
you can.
Jimmy Jackson covers.
100%. It just helps.
Steve Smith covers. We see it a lot more. It used to be a absolute no. Now we see it all the time, right?
And I think if you are, I think the key is to let people know. And I think you can do it. I think just in my job it helps. It helps to be objective. It helps to see people through a different lens.
Yeah.
When you have no real care about the outcome of the
Matt Stegging
Yeah, well, he went there. He played there. He
Right,
sits next to me
right.
on the radio when I'm doing games on press row, and he's fired up. I almost get hit with his
Well, it's
elbows. Yeah.
a different kind of presentation, right? But tell me, you're in Chicago when Fitzgerald is playing for Northwestern, right?
He was already done, but yeah, I mean, I certainly dealt with him when he was at Northwestern.
97, 98, 99, 2000. He was there,
I
wasn't
think
he?
it was
there?
95 is when because he was on that Rose Bowl
Oh,
team
was
in
he?
'95. So
Okay.
so by the time I get there in '99, I think he's done. Yeah.
Okay. And so you sort of knew about Northwestern, and
Sure.
and how long do you stay in Chicago after you graduate?
Not long, a matter of weeks. I was looking for a newspaper job and took one in Western Illinois,
Okay.
in Freeport, Illinois, little town. It had some similarities to Lansing, which is what I think I liked it. Small town, manufacturing town. Used to have 3 Fortune 500 companies, but it was kind of dying at the time. It used to be Honeywell, Newell Rubbermaid, and Firestone. Used to all be there.
On I-80 or whatever it is, or no?
Yeah, it was off the beaten path too. You had to it wasn't straight on 80.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I met some of my best friends there. We were all young guys in our 20s putting out a paper every night. It was
And how long are you there?
2.5 years.
Okay.
I was a sports writer and then the sports editor there for a
And
little while.
then where?
Kalamazoo,
Okay.
which was a great place.
Bigger market.
Yeah, and a college beat back when, like, I covered Western Michigan University, and this is
Okay.
back when we used to travel with everything. They sent me, Puerto Rico, Utah, wherever the men's basketball team and football team went, I went. Sort of like Michigan State, but it was back then you did that at those places.
And how long are you?
6 years.
6 years. So tell me what period of time that is.
It's 05 through just the beginning of 11, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know about Western Michigan football, but did they have the coach of Minnesota?
Not yet. He came shortly after that, but it was a great era because this is before NIL, right?
Right.
And so you had guys the first team I covered there had Greg Jennings, who played for the Packers,
Right.
Tony Scheffler played for the Lions, Louis Delmas, who played for the Lions. Like, you could have guys before they transferred up.
Right.
And so you had a higher level of high-end talent.
You could take a guy that was maybe a 2-star or a 3-star that became by the time he's done.
and you didn't lose them.
Right.
And so it allowed those fan bases to dream. Like, I would hate to cover that level now because it just, what's happened is just killed that ability to, you get a kid who's a diamond in the rough back then. It's like, oh, we got something, they used to think.
Right.
Now you get them for a year. And
Now
that kid's
you
gone.
have to encourage him to work hard so he can transfer, right?
Right.
If you're really looking out for his best interest to some degree.
To some degree. It's one of the misnomers. Yes, in terms of what they can make in college. In terms of the NFL and what experience they want, I guess. But in
Right.
terms of the NFL, I think that's like, if you look at, there was a Super Bowl that Jennings actually played in with the Packers won with Aaron Rodgers back
Right,
years ago.
right.
And in that Super Bowl, there were 18 guys from the SEC,
Right.
15 guys from the Big Ten, and 15 guys from the MAC.
Wow.
And so, but you can get, they'll find you anywhere.
right.
So there's no need to transfer if the NFL is your goal. But I also don't fault kids who want to play in the Big Ten, like play in
Right.
front of those fan bases,
right. Right.
or make more in NIL and things like that.
So besides football and basketball for Western, what else are you covering sports-wise?
Yeah, I mean, there was some community stuff, a little bit of hockey, a little bit of whatever was going on in the community, local marathon, whatever it might be, that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. But a lot of it was
High school sports at all?
a little bit, yep, in the spring. And
It would have been before TJ, right?
It was after TJ. It was
After, that's
TJ.
what I meant.
But I would keep like, one of my side beats was there was a bunch of guys who played in the NFL from Kalamazoo area at the time, Jason Babb and TJ Duckett, all those guys, and
Right.
I would keep tabs on them. And then I would do like the outdoors section and things like that, which I know nothing about hunting or
Yeah,
fishing. but I
TJ was in the Saban Bobby Williams era, so
Yes.
maybe 01 he was done or something around there, 2000.
His dad was still the track coach at Lloyd Norris, and my wife actually was also the gym teacher. My wife had him as her gym teacher at Lloyd
wow.
Norris years and years ago,
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Kind of a prominent Kalamazoo school for athletics, right?
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
Well, I was so M Live, which we all know now, used to be is part of the Booth newspaper chain, as it was known. And anyway, when that changeover happened in 12, I started covering Michigan State for them briefly, and that's like 2012 up to the football season, and then I moved over to the Lansing State Journal to be the columnist.
And what year was that? 2000.
2012, September of 12.
So we're 5 years into the D'Antonio era,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And we're 12 years past the national championship.
Yep.
But we went to the Final Four in 2000, 2005, 2010. What's that? Is that Appling, Payne?
Yeah, the beginning, it's Draymond
Draymond
Green
Green.
senior year, and one of the things that was selfishly
We lose to Ohio State
when
at Breslin
Right.
on the final game.
when
We
Brandon
missed a-
Dawson tears
we
up
missed-
his knee. Yeah,
We missed a bunch of free throws there.
it stings still. No, the funniest thing is I remember when I knew I was leaving to start covering MSU. And this was still going to be at M Live that year, but Michigan State was playing Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game of football, and I wanted Michigan State to
right.
lose. I wanted MSU to lose so badly because I didn't want the Rose Bowl to happen for them before I got to start covering them.
Oh,
It was like the worst thing would be they make it, then you cover them. I wanted that to be part of. I wanted that journey to be something that I
that
experienced.
you saw. Well, they lost.
Yeah, no,
They had Russell Wilson. We had beat him earlier in the year.
I remember that.
Yeah, I've got a painting here someplace. Keith Nicola. He's coming on pretty soon.
Is he? Okay.
Couple weeks. So yeah, that was really the, maybe the, I don't want to say the beginning, but sort of the romantic era of Michigan State football.
I called it Camelot. The whole thing that was happening. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
Because at least in our lifetime, because most of us don't remember the Duffy Doherty or the Biggie Munn
right.
era, right? And or you could call it the post ESPN Camelot era of Michigan State football.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't think I'll ever see, and just the way everything was going there. I mean, basketball had a lot of things. It was
Right.
that combination of everything that was happening was as good as I think it'll ever be.
And so I would say football and basketball are fairly stagnant as far as real change that you can see into the foreseeable future, right? You have bowl games and maybe there's going to be a playoff, but basically you come to a school, you're there for 4 years, you can transfer, but you got to sit out a year.
It's the old way back
Right.
then. Yeah, and so you could build something still, and you could, I think people connected with athletes at their schools because they were, the athletes not only were choosing that school and then choosing and also staying,
Right.
but then when athletes left, they usually had a similar bond with the school
Right.
because they'd been there so long. They
Right.
cared. You see former athletes caring about what, and that's the thing that.
But I mean, at that point in time, you saw, I don't think you could have predicted where college athletics would be today, right? In 2012, you'd have to have a
Yeah. I mean, I still remember in 2018, in like January of 18, being in a locker room at Wisconsin with Miles Bridges and talking to him about, a $40 payment from an agent that his mother took. Like that was like, what I mean? Like just the lunacy of what we cared about in terms relative to what is now and what was viewed unethical.
And yet at the same time, advertising and newspaper business is constantly going through significant change,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, and maybe it was stable then, but we've seen significant changes in the news business post, I don't know, for the last 20 years, right? In part because of advertising.
Yeah, well, yes, and it's how things were always going to change, but it's how the newspaper business handled the movement online and classifieds ads and all that stuff early on, how poorly they did, and sort of giving things away. And then, but yeah, it's been an incredible transition in some good ways, some bad ways. My whole career has been. I'm grateful that I got the end of the old way.
Yeah.
And have sort of learned how to navigate the new way and its advantages and disadvantages. I mean, I had to fix a pre-press machine in my first job out of school, and I still, to get
They taught that at Sexton, didn't they?
Well, they didn't they didn't teach the pre-press machine, but they taught journalism. We didn't have in fact, our school newspaper didn't have the internet yet. In '96, maybe when I was 97, like you didn't need it for what we were doing,
right?
And then even in my first jobs out of school, it was a secondary thought, and now it's everything, and learning how to be effective with it has been. I mean, there are things you miss about the newspaper business, or about when it was just a newsroom, the energy of it. I think it's the size of newsrooms has hurt the business too, because not just that you don't have the resources, but getting young people to want to be in the business.
Yeah.
Like it used to be, you didn't make squat when you were young in the business, but
Yeah.
there was such an energy to a newsroom that you wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
And you knew there were people there who were doing okay financially, and if you stick it out and you have a good career, you'll be okay. So I can make 21 grand a year for a couple of years. That's fine.
Right.
And now it's like I'm sitting alone in this room in some market where I've got 3 other reporters with me, or whatever it is. Do I want to do this? Do I want this job? You don't have the mentors, you don't have
Right.
the energy, you don't have all that stuff that's just
And you see
different.
people out there who are making all kinds of money, who can't write,
well,
who
that's,
can't, they're in sales, car salesmen or whatever.
well, that's
you know.
always been that way.
Yeah.
But right. You see another path, and
Right.
it's. I mean, it used to always be in newspapers. You go into a newspaper parking lot back in the day,
Right.
and there was a clear line between the cars of the people who were in advertising versus the newsroom.
Right.
You could tell very.
And were you on, was the State Journal on Lenawee when you came?
It was. I got the last 2 years of that old building.
What a great building that was.
It was good.
I mean, it was a classic,
It was
kind of news kind of place where everything is sort of run down, but you look at it and say, this was probably really cool in the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't put your lunch on the floor because there are roaches, but otherwise, there. I mean, it was. Yeah, it did have some. Having an old press that used to be in the building. I mean, it wasn't at that point being printed anymore in the
Right.
building, but just it was a building built for the old way, and I had that in Kalamazoo too. An incredible.
There's always got to be some excitement, no matter what you're making, to be able to, go to a basketball practice or a football practice, or be
No
able
doubt.
to talk to Tom Izzo and he knows who you are, or call him on the. I don't know whether you call him on the phone. I don't
Sure.
probably have, but have those kind of. You feel like you're intermingling with gods, right?
Well, yeah. You have to. If that's the way you feel, you're going to struggle.
Well, but you are. I mean, he's one of the greats.
Oh, absolutely,
of all time,
absolutely.
right?
And with my relationship with Tom Izzo actually is different than any other one there, because he was there when I was still a fan of the school as a teenager.
Right.
Right. So like I started covering MSU in 2012,
Right.
and Mark D'Antonio, I didn't know him from Bob when I was a kid, right? When I was a
Right.
fan,
Well, you
so
wouldn't have.
very easy to cover him. But the first time Tom Izzo was upset with me for something I wrote about his program, that's Tom Izzo yelling at you. The guy
Right.
you knew when you were 15 years
Right.
old is the
Right.
guy who won a national title when you were still a fan. So that took me a minute. You have to,
Right.
But yeah, the job's amazing. There's no doubt about it. And some of the things they have over MSU in terms of the access at MSU, Izzo keeps the locker room open after games. Those sort of things, ability to tell stories, is different than a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
I had it largely when I was covering Western Michigan too, and so yeah, I'd experienced it before in certain ways. But yeah, no, there's no doubt it's a cool job. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. If I
So
didn't.
you come back and where do you live?
I lived for a while on the east side of Lansing, not
Okay.
far from like Groesbeck area.
Right, Fandor, sort of.
Yep, that
Just west of Fandor.
yeah, little house I was renting for about 5 years, and then my wife and I bought a house in the West Side neighborhood, where about a block and a half from my mother.
By Sexton.
Yeah, by Sexton.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
And that's been rejuvenated over the years, right?
it's a great neighborhood. It's different than when I grew up because it used to be a kids' neighborhood,
Right.
but it's a great place to live. It really is.
And you're writing columns, a couple columns a day, or I know you wrote 2 or 3 last night.
It varies in the situation. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to cover the town you grew up in. One of the reasons I wasn't sure I wanted this job initially was I didn't know. That it's the whole George Costanza combining of two worlds from Seinfeld, where I didn't know if I wanted the third grade teacher who knew me, the women at my parents' church who helped raise me. I didn't know if I wanted all them reading my cranky opinions.
Right.
I didn't know if I wanted those worlds to combine. But I'm grateful I did, because it's some of the emails I get from people I knew 30 years ago.
But besides covering Michigan State sports, what else do you cover?
That's, I would say, 80% of the job.
Right.
And the job has changed at times, and there are things I'd like. I do some stuff outside of sports. During the pandemic, I did stuff entirely outside of sports. I used to probably do more than I do now, be it news issues in the community, because we don't have another columnist right now. But right now, our staff is
No other columnists?
and not at the LSJ, right?
Not even news?
Correct.
You're
So
the only columnist.
I'm the only columnist, and so I've done, stepping out when there's something that happens in Lansing that's important, then that's my role to cover it as well. But I do less and less of that, and I'd like to do more and more of that, because that's really interesting stuff.
And so Matt Marconi is
Mancarini,
Mancarini.
the great Matt Mancarini,
I have him on my cell phone. He covers
great Crystal Palace Premier League fan, by the way.
he covers some of the court cases.
Yeah.
But he's not a columnist.
He's a reporter, correct?
And tell me the difference.
Opinion versus, a reporter is doing the news. My job is to give. Reporting-based columns are a lot of what I do, but it's also opinion. It's to weigh in on the issues of the
Your
day.
3 takes on the game last night as a columnist,
Correct.
not a report.
Correct.
Yeah, and then you also did a report last
Well,
night.
I did a separate column.
Yeah,
column.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so you did pushed out too, and so you do have reporters, but they seem like
The idea is
few and far between now. Right?
there are fewer of them. Yeah, we're small. It's still a good staff. We have really good editors. We have, you bring up Matt Mancarini, very talented guy. We were lucky to get back because he was part of a group that won a Pulitzer in Louisville, and we still have talent. It's just not as big a staff as it was.
And how do you feel that is vis-a-vis actually breaking stories?
Oh, it hurts us that we don't have as many people. Yeah, no, there's no doubt. It's harder to be a factor. It's harder to react to everything. You have to pick and choose, and that's, that can be frustrating when you don't feel like you have the pulse of everything that you once did. But that's just our reality. I mean, some of that's dictated by audience too. Like we can see now how many people are reading everything we do in real time. So when I post a 3 quick takes column,
which is basically one of the only things I read.
I appreciate that. No, it's look, a lot of people are like that. And that's
I don't
why
ever agree with any of it, but
nor should you. It's just from my mother. But I can see almost instantly how many people are reading that.
Oh, okay.
And so we have all that data. So like things that 30 years ago. So one of the advantages of the online world is in the old days of newspapers, we knew people cared about certain things more than others. But you could cover everything because advertising paid for it, and you were able to cover it.
You didn't really know.
But you didn't know exactly.
Right.
Now you do. Now you're like, boy, we're covering that, and only that amount of people are reading it. Maybe we shouldn't be covering that.
Right.
Now, sometimes you do things for the sake of the community anyway. Like you think they should be covered. And there are things I do with Lansing Community College.
When they get sworn in, when the elected officials get sworn in, everybody seems to publish that. And it's like, okay.
Do you need that? Right. Do I need to be at we need to know what's happening at every city council meeting.
Right.
Do we need to be there? Like that sometimes, can you make those calls behind the scenes? Like those sort of things. Or do you need to write a story off everyone, I should say? Like those sort of things, those are discussions that are had. Yeah.
And I just from my own experience, significant drop off in covering the courts for sure.
Sure. Yeah. We used to have just dedicated people who were only for that.
Yeah.
And
we would see them, and now it's like and when they'd come here and interview me for whatever it was, they'd come and there'd be a reporter and a camera guy and maybe a third guy, and now it's a single person with a camera.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, right. We still have. I would say courts are something we still have a pretty good emphasis on, but it's not like none of it's like it used to be.
Yeah, but the value of newspapers online is you can also do video. I mean, it's technically not video, but you can do, actual live interviews, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do a lot of different stuff, and we do podcasts.
Right.
You can do video things that you couldn't do before. Video still is one of the things that advertising can sell pretty well in newspapers. That's why they like us to do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about, some of the stuff you've covered.
Okay.
Right. So you come back and 2012 and you're rooting against Michigan State, I guess I'll forgive you because you had a reason for that. But I mean, the refs sort of took that game away from.
I've
them.
rooted for Michigan State in both their first two. Rooted against Michigan State in both their first two Big Ten championships for different reasons. So when they beat Ohio State in 2013 to go to the Rose Bowl, I found myself rooting against Michigan State.
I was there.
So this will give you an insight to what a lot of columnists or reporters are thinking about and how it works if you're not a fan of the team. So I'm writing. It's a nasty deadline. And this is before I did 3 quick takes. But I've got a nasty print deadline it's a night game in Indianapolis.
It's cold as hell.
Well, no, it's Indianapolis, right?
Yeah,
it's
but
indoors.
it was cold as hell.
Oh, yeah, it was cold. Outside, it was cold.
Outside, it was so cold. I was there. I mean, it was like, oh, God.
70 in the press box. It was great.
Right.
But anyway, I'm writing 2 columns, an if win and if lose column for print. I've got it. And I realized early in the third quarter that my if they lose column is just way better than my if they win column. It's not even close. And I'm going to have like 20 minutes after the game to tie this up. So I'm rooting for myself and my own deadlines.
To publish your better article.
My better article. That's all I cared about. I'm not thinking about the Rose Bowl and all the cool stories. I'm thinking this is a better story tonight. This is what I want to run.
Well, they stopped the quarterback.
Braxton Miller, yeah.
And,
so I had to run the bad one.
And our linebacker, who was amazing, who really didn't get much fanfare post.
Nikos Allen.
Yeah.
One of my favorite college players ever to cover. He was incredible.
Yeah, and the idea that we could go to a Rose Bowl against such a great team, right?
It was, yeah. And as I look at it now, and obviously it was short-sighted in that night, but the storyline is amazing. Like I understand today, people still wonder if they'd beaten Notre Dame, could have that team gone undefeated, won a national title?
Right.
But in some ways,
a game that a lot of people think was stolen from us, right?
Correct. But in some ways, something would have been lost. That Rose Bowl would have been lost. And that experience, that sort of pilgrimage out to Pasadena that a lot of people got to experience, and it was a real takeover. I mean, if you talk to people in Southern California who were around, they'll talk about like 3 different years that it was like that. Wisconsin in '93, Michigan State in 2013, and now Indiana this year, where everywhere you went in a place as big as Southern California, you saw Michigan State. And it was and just the way, it was sort of D'Antonio had sort of predicted it the summer before. You'll be the ones. All the storylines are almost too perfect.
Right. And yet even then it wasn't Granddaddy because there was a national championship game that we didn't play in, right?
Didn't play in. But back then it was the bowl game still had
meaning
because it was before the playoff. It was the next year that the next year the playoff starts. This is why, that year was perfect to the timing of it. It's the last great Rose Bowl. The next year, they're in Dallas for that Cotton Bowl when they went 10-2. Really good team.
Riley Bullock makes the interception.
Great team. But you start to realize that those games aren't going to matter when all the questions of D'Antonio are about Jim Harbaugh being hired at Michigan.
Yeah.
That's the game that you've worked all year to get to. This is sort of an exhibition at the end of it. What's happening next with Jim Harbaugh is the bigger story. And it was the first sign that like these actual second-tier games in the playoff era aren't going to matter a ton.
Mm-hmm. And so over the last decade or so, decade and a half, what do you think some of the biggest stories were that you covered in football?
Well, that season is certainly up there. That whole run was up there. But there have been the other way. There's been, the 3-9 season was interesting out of nowhere. There's it obviously more recently and even the end of the D'Antonio era, the beginning of Mel Tucker, the end of Mel Tucker, all that stuff.
Did you see that coming?
The end of D'Antonio?
Yeah.
I remember writing Mark and I get along well now, but it was a little contentious at the end because it felt like every week I was writing a column wondering what he was going to do with his program. It was clearly it stalled out, right? The staff didn't seem as hungry, as good. There didn't seem to be a direction, a path to become great again.
Right.
And I remember that December thinking, he's either got to commit to 4 or 5 more years because you've got to rebuild this a little bit,
right,
or he's got to get out because you can't. Doing just another year, what's that? You're just delaying something.
But
But I didn't think it was going to happen at the time it happened.
When any of his teams, you look at the players, and were any of them what you'd think would be a path to victory? I mean, that was the thing about Mark D'Antonio. There was nothing about what he did that you thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a great team in 3 years or 4 years, right?
No, but I think part of it was I think he had lost. So in 2019, I remember talking to him before that season, before his last year. And I, to this day, think he thought he had a great team. And because you can read the tea leaves in guys. They'll
Who
spin
was
it.
the quarterback?
It was would have been Lewerke senior
Brian
year.
Lewerke,
Yeah, and
yeah.
they still had a really good defense. And the last time that they went, and L.J. Scott was a senior, right? That was L.J. Scott done the year before, but it was defensively they go to Ohio State that year, and they wound up losing, and things fell apart. But in the middle of the second quarter, even though they turned the ball over twice, like they were they were toe to toe with Ohio State. They looked like a program that had some guys. But that offense, he just misjudged it, and it was sort of like I think, he didn't have the guys he thought he had weren't as good as he thought he had, and that's where when you start to get concerned that like this isn't going to happen for somebody when they're misjudging what they have on the roster a little bit. So yeah, I didn't see it happening that February, but
that would have been 2020.
Yeah, right before COVID. Yeah.
Right before COVID.
I remember the night it happened because I had a great interview with Rocket Watts, and Michigan State basketball was at Illinois.
22.
And great conversation with him. I was excited about the column. I was going back to the hotel to write on Rocket Watts, and all of a sudden, the Mel Tucker news breaks, and
but that we had hired Mel Tucker.
Yeah, that was the Mel Tucker night.
Oh, okay. That we hired him.
That we hired him. Sorry, that wasn't the D'Antonio stepping down night. That was the Mel Tucker hired night. I always remember because the column got pushed aside on Rocket Watts. I was annoyed by it.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of a tight span. I mean, I don't think anybody saw him stepping down, but I think people thought, what is he going to do? Like, can he redo it? Can he do it again, right? Can he go from where they were in 07? I think it was 07 when Brian Hoyer loses to Michigan, and maybe some bad calls, but just sort of the little brother game. Was that 06 or 07? It might have been 07, I think.
Yeah, the 07. Well, it was 07 was his first year. So in hindsight, while there's been a lot of struggle, I think that he left when he did. I mean, it probably would have been better if he left in 2017, right? They go 10-3 after that 3-9 season. If he had left there, the program still had enough parts to bring in new energy. I think it would have helped. But leaving when he did was better than staying, because I don't think he would have been great during the COVID era. I don't think NIL would have suited him all that well. And, he was a great coach in the era he was in.
I think the only thing I would say is that he earned the right to say when it was his time.
So let me ask you this. That's a fair point.
And the only other thing I would add is if you did it once, you can probably do it again, but the question is, do you have the energy? Do you have the, you know what I mean? You might have had the energy in 2007, but do you have it 14 years later, 13 years later, right?
So 2 notes on that. I agree, because there are examples of it. A guy like Kirk Ferentz at Iowa has lost it and gotten it back 4 or 5 times. And I've also had coaches, though, tell me that's the hardest thing to do, especially in college football. Like, once you lose it from that initial thing you had going, to get it back is the hardest thing. It's harder than the original build.
Could be.
Because you can't sell the dream. Originally, the first year as a head coach, best year in recruiting. You're selling a dream. There's no warts. There's nothing. Like, nobody can say this isn't going to work because nobody knows. Later on, there's, it's a hard thing to get back. And they had such a run, such a magical run at such a high, and done things that Michigan State hadn't done, that the expectations were going to be in a place that he was going to have a hard time fulfilling. To the point of, like, he had earned the right to stay. I agree to a large extent. Like, I was calling for him to make a decision, but I wasn't calling for him to be fired or anything like that. The flip side of that is nobody owns the program. The fans own the program. The school owns the program. You're a steward of the program when you're a coach for a while.
For sure.
And ultimately, the way he left the program and the timing of when he left the program is still being felt today. So some of the struggles that they've had since are in some correlation. Now, they should have been able to get out of it by now. I'm not saying that, but you still see the effects of it and who they chose to hire after him because of the timing of all that. and where the talent level had fallen to in the program and trying to get that back. So, I mean, you just, I think if you give somebody all the time in the world because they've earned that, the only issue with that is that it may take you longer to get it back, or you may lose what you have on this.
But there were a lot of confounding variables way outside his control. I mean, the Nasser thing, right?
Sure. Yeah, no, and even before, I mean, the class that broke, like that 2016 group that he brought in, that freshman class that was really their attempt to elevate things to levels that Michigan State had never done in recruiting.
Was that Donnie Coleman and
Corley, Vance, King, all those guys, and actually there were some guys in that class who worked out, who were lower in that class. Right. Worked out pretty well. It was Austin Robertson, who was, that was obviously problematic, and so though, if that class had worked. And I think that kind of broke his spirit again, too. Like they stopped, like you talk about energy and whether it's, or the hunger to do that again. I think that was we're not going to do this.
Yeah, that was a, tough deal. But what do you think post D'Antonio? How do you think we've fared?
Not well.
Not well. And where do you attribute the fault there?
Well, it's some of it's not. I mean, obviously, Mel Tucker getting fired doesn't help, right? But some of it is there's lots of little bit pieces to blame, but it's a lot of well-intentioned moves that just didn't work. Like I think Mel Tucker as a coach in 2017 before NIL, when swagger really mattered in recruiting, would have been a really good head coach somewhere. Now, he may have still had the same flaws that tripped him up. I'm just saying, as a football coach, as a recruiter, that would have been a really effective era for a guy like him. Jonathan Smith had done it really well at Oregon State.
Right.
I don't think anybody realized
he did well. He did one good year, maybe, right?
But he built something.
Yes.
But he built something in an era. He built it before this era, right? And so, like, that probably should have been able to have been realized that this is different. But at the time, it seemed like I thought it was a good hire. I didn't realize how important fit was until him. Like, he was not a fit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how important the communication aspect was. Like, the ability to tell, the ability to really, really sell your program and sell what's going on to the fans and be like that matters. And he was not great at that. He just wasn't. It was his weak. It was his greatest.
I didn't. I'm a sort of a fan of the people in place at the time. Yeah. I mean, Alan Haller, he's a Sexton guy. Yeah. He played at Michigan State. He played in the NFL, and he comes back, and he's our AD. Okay, Yeah. And I know that there were a lot of people that didn't, think he should be the guy because he wasn't Mark Hollis. Yeah. Right. I mean, but I didn't think Jonathan Smith was a good fit, and I thought he's never going to be here for a long time. He's either going to do really well and leave,
or get fired,
or he's going to do really poorly and leave. But no way is he going to stay. Nobody comes from Oregon and from California to stay. Now,
Judd Heathcote did.
One guy, one guy. But we saw Jonathan Smith, the other John L. Smith, and how he did, right? Yeah. And I didn't think he was going to be a good fit either.
And he wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was a mistake of a hire. And ultimately, I mean, I think that not realizing that he wasn't going to – I mean, there are elements – like I wouldn't have hired him for the reason of the communication point. I don't think I would have realized the fit maybe. Now, his inability to communicate on the Michigan rivalry, you can't – you gotta meet people where they are better than that. But some of that had to do with communication skills.
Right.
And that is – you don't have to be a great orator to be a football coach. And you can be a really good football coach without it, but it really helps. Like, he would still be the coach today, I believe, if he could have explained his vision better and where they were going and why things were struggling. If he could have gotten people, maybe not to – there are a lot of people who were out on him, like you.
I mean, but I didn't – but put that aside, I think if they play the kid that played the second half of the season –
yeah.
I mean, I can't even say his name.
Alessio Milivojevic. I struggle.
I mean, one of your jobs as a coach, right, is to play the best player. And, I'm not suggesting that I have the ability to do that, but when I look at the way those guys played in this season, I think he was a better player.
And he might have been. Early on, I don't know. Like there was a point before he lost his confidence where Childs was playing okay, and Milivojevic comes in and throws that pick six against West. I don't know I don't know if where Alessio was at that point was truly ahead of
Right.
Childs, because you'd like to think you'd have the courage to make that decision. I think the big problem was their offensive line was so bad
It was tough.
that he lost his confidence. And I've seen that happen before to quarterbacks. I saw it happen to Andrew Maxwell. Andrew Maxwell was never going to be a great quarterback, but he was on a trajectory this way, and he lost his confidence. And that can happen to a young quarterback. And so I don't think Childs did not take the steps that I thought he was going to be. I don't think that's why he's not the coach. I don't think that's why they lost. That's not why they lost to UCLA. That's not why they lost to Nebraska. And those are the games that really set them down.
But did we lose to Minnesota too?
That was with Alessio.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean,
Yeah, no. Later on, absolutely. No.
all the losses matter, but
Yeah.
all of them matter. But you're right; those are maybe games we could have won. that
Well,
really-
and those were games that set the narrative that this could be over. Like you go back to the USC game, nobody was thinking this was his last year, right? They lose to USC, they look okay. It wasn't until the Nebraska game where it's like, this looks like a mumbled mess.
I think the UCLA
That was
game
it.
was tough because it was homecoming, and I don't know.
And there was a lack of passion and fight.
Right.
And that's the big thing. It wasn't just that they didn't look like they were a good team. It looked like they didn't care.
And do you think do you think that's an indictment of our mindset that here we have that everybody says he's an honorable guy, he's a great guy, he's a great leader of men in some ways, and he does everything he's supposed to do, and yet here we are saying it was time for him to go.
It's not ideal. I mean, it's not, right? It's not ideal that in terms of what we care about and what we judge. But
Right.
like the flip side of it is, again, these are big businesses. These are football programs
Right.
that a lot of people care about. You can be a really nice guy, and it doesn't mean you have to treat somebody like crap on the way. But like ultimately, he's getting paid a lot of money
Right.
to go away. He'll be fine. It stinks for some people. Do I think there are some good coaches on that staff? I do. But that's what these guys sign up for. This is the world you sign up for. In this day and age, it is dangerous to give people 2 years and do that consistently. Like I think, one of the things with Pat Fitzgerald is a better fit, obviously, but like people are going to have to like hunker down and ride with him for a while because you can't cycle like this. It doesn't. It's not good for a program. It's not. It would be really hard, I think, to hire the next person if you, after 2 years, decided no, this guy's not it either, just because it hasn't happened quickly.
Right.
Because this guy isn't Kirk Cignetti, so
Well, don't you think that the nuances of those losses against the teams that we lost to this year will be maybe corrected next year?
Yeah, maybe. I think it's harder in this era to maintain culture and that sort of grit than it ever was before, because again, it's a lot of new guys. It's every year. I mean, he's going to have. I mean, I saw a podcast with Pat Fitzgerald where he was talking about he shouldn't have more than 40 guys from the portal transfers a year.
Right.
Well, he's going to have more than 40 this first year because he's got to. There's no way around it, and he knows that. But so you got all these new guys. Some of them are going to work, some aren't, and it's going to happen to a lot of programs. Like, people are going to have to start to realize just because your coach goes, 5-7 one year after going 10-2, it doesn't mean he's lost it. That just means they picked wrong out of the portal, or didn't have the right quarterback, or just didn't have the right. Some guys didn't work out, and the next year they may be 10-2. It's going to be very different than it used to be. The key is for a place like MSU, and this is why it didn't work for Smith, is you've got to show the 10-2. Like once you show a certain level, people will well this year was not great.
Right.
They brought in some guys who weren't fits or whatever.
Dan Campbell, right? We can accept 9-7 or whatever the record
Because
was.
we've seen the ceiling a little more. Yeah, there's faith.
What about so we talk a little bit about Jonathan Smith, and you've indicated what you think about Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, what do you think about the process Michigan State went through to hire him?
I thought it was pretty effective. I liked Fitzgerald hire. Now, I'm biased in the sense that I've always enjoyed talking with him at Big Ten Media Days and other things like that. So I'm trying to check myself a little bit when I'm covering early in because I think it was a smart hire. I think given the circumstances, he's a guy who, he was coaching in the Big Ten against Michigan State and saw the best of MSU, what it can be, what it looks like. And I think that's important. I think he's done a nice job bringing in some guys staff-wise, the Max Bullas, retaining the Courtney Hawkins. I think there have been a lot of smart moves. And I just think he's a smart guy, but he knows how to communicate, knows how to fire people.
What do you think about the process that Michigan State went through? That
it was quick. It was shrewd. It was effective. I love that it wasn't a drag out process from my own standpoint.
There wasn't a committee, as far as you can tell, right?
No, and it wasn't a committee for Alan Haller too. He just got it wrong.
Yeah,
not being a committee though is part of what got Haller in trouble as he went on his own a little bit. But it was clear that Jay Bat had he didn't know Pat Fitzgerald, but he knew a lot of people knew him.
Right.
And they identified him, and he went out and they got him. And it was clear those conversations have been happening for a little while.
And so we have Kevin Guskowitz. I think that's the way you pronounce his name, right?
Yep.
And Kevin hires Jay Bat, right? 2 non-Michigan State people, and they hire Pat Fitzgerald, right?
Yep.
And historically, not really even a secret, you really had to be a Michigan State person to be successful, right?
Or just to get the job. I don't know, to be successful.
Well, I mean, when you look at the line of presidents that preceded Simon, right?
Yeah.
And we can debate whether Simon was successful, but most people would say vis-a-vis a lot of things, she really did a great job.
For a long time,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, that's the question is there a new era at Michigan State with
I think both Guskowitz and Bat are bright guys, and there's a presence to them that maybe Michigan State didn't have in Stanley, for example, the previous president.
Right.
I think Guskowitz is, whether everything works, and there are a lot of things outside of athletics, that obviously a school president's dealing with. But I think he's a sharp guy. I really do, and I've only had a few dealings with him, but you get a feeling about people a little bit.
And what do you think about Pat Fitzgerald? Besides, you're a fan, you like him, you like talking to him. I mean, where do you see him for?
I don't think there are any home run hires anymore. I think there might be again in 10 years, because in 10 years we'll have enough of this new era to say this guy works doing it, right? This guy worked here. This will happen. We don't have that yet because everybody is new enough to what's happening that you don't know how they're going to adjust to it, and everybody's circumstance in terms of resources is a little different. I think he's a hire that has a chance to work, and that's the most you can really ask for. I think the fact that he was fired at Northwestern and spent 2 years out of the game and had introspection and had a lot of sort of outside analysis on how to win now was probably better for him than if you had just hired him straight from Northwestern. So I think those things. Now, and I think he speaks the language. He may not be from Michigan State,
right,
but he speaks Michigan State-ese or Spartanese, whatever you want to call it. Like he connects, and that's a really big thing. Now, it's a low bar after Jonathan Smith because he didn't. Like Jonathan Smith, if you ever listen to, if you were to break down without his voice, Jonathan Smith's sentence structure, it was like Yoda, right? The back of the sentence came first sometimes, and other things like that. It was very interesting. I used to when I was taking the quotes, but Fitzgerald, he'll fire people up. When he frustrates people, he'll be able to soothe it because he'll be able to connect with them.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. That's what Jonathan Smith couldn't do when he was frustrating people, is to connect and say, hey, this isn't fun. This isn't great, but this is what we're trying to build here. This is why it's not working yet. We'll get it. Hang in there. It's happening. If he had just been able to say that, but he never could, people might have been, all right, well, give it another year. We'll see here.
And so, I don't agree with the inner thought process or whatever, the 2-year thing. I mean, you can think about your golf game all you want and think you've figured out the answer, but until you actually go to the driving range and hit shots, Let
me push back though on that.
Yeah.
Let's use a Dan Campbell example. So Dan Campbell is great head coach of the Lions. I think everybody would agree with that, right? Takes over his play calling. I think his head coaching stuff slipped. His game management slipped because he's worried about the next play. He's dealing in the moment with everything else. I'm not saying I don't know enough about Fitzgerald yet in terms of how he's going to execute everything. But I think living in the day-to-day at Northwestern, a very different place than Michigan State, and a program that wasn't winning a ton in the NIL era, and just trying to get to the next thing, is different than stepping out and going to visit other programs and talking to people about how and why.
Sure.
And I think that's the advantage potentially.
For sure. And I agree, and I've said this, Pat is not a Michigan State guy, but he has all the characteristics of what we want a Michigan State guy to be. I mean, just his presence, his mood, his attitude. He seems like he's always happy. Now, of course, he hasn't coached a game yet. He's brought in football guys, and he appears to be a football guy. I think he does have a real opportunity to be a home run guy. Because I think he can I think he has enough pieces in place, and I think people want to come and play for him. And I think he has enough money in the NIL to be competitive.
And that'll be the key. I mean, the resources there, but that's where the stuff that they've done with that JBAT has done with Spartan Ventures and all that. Right. I mean, there's a lot of really out of the box thinking, some big steps that are taking. I think he realized they couldn't exist as they were, and take the next step. And I think a lot of schools have realized that. Like Indiana, it's worked because they got hot at the right time, and everybody wants to give. Right. Mark Cuban just wrote a much bigger check than he did last year, right? Everybody's excited. And it's easy when everybody's excited. But ultimately, you got to build something sustainable. And that just relying on, donor giving, collective stuff is a really hard thing.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to sustain. Yeah. So we got, I hope, a little bit of time.
Sure.
We got to talk about MSU basketball. Okay. All right. And really, what do you think of this season?
It's they're better than maybe I thought they'd be at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They're an interesting team because they are not perfect by any stretch. Like you can see on the roster where they could be better. Like they are maybe a Jace Richardson away from being perfect, but that's a big guy to lose, right? But there is there's a physicality and grit and sort of hunger, consistency from their top guys that is, and some of those guys have developed, the Jackson Kohlers of the world, Jeremy Fears, that gives them an identity and gave them an identity very early on. And then they have these other pieces that are intriguing that you sort of need, high ceiling pieces in a sense. Like the thing about a Cam Ward or a Jordan Scott or any of these guys that still have room to grow and you don't know what they can be is you kind of need that in a season. You need to become something a little more than you are usually in November.
Right.
And so they have that. I think if there's a concern, it's they don't have enough secondary ball handling. They don't have always a great answer if Fears is not in the game. Like last year, they called it strength in numbers, right? Because they had all these guys, and even though a lot of them were very different, and they weren't really.
But they had Trey, and they had Fears, and it wasn't really clear which one was better.
And their best game of the year, and well, not their best game of the year, but their most important early game of the year against North Carolina and Maui a year ago happened without Jace Richardson playing. Like they were really good. This year, there are a lot of guys they can't live without. They can't win without Jackson Kohler. They can't win without Jeremy Fears. The impact of losing guys would be immense. So they don't have the same kind of depth, even though they've got some good pieces. So I think they're different in that regard. But yeah, it's a team that has a chance to beat anybody on a given day, which is really what you need and what you want.
Well, yeah, I think they just need to continue to get a little better, and they've done that. I think that the mistakes or whatever the things that Kohler and Cooper have done in past years, the improvement they needed it was so simple. Like you just need to make the layup. You just need to catch the ball. Just catch the ball and make the layup. It sounds simple, but they made that little improvement, and they've gotten a lot better. But I think Fears has gotten a lot better this year. I mean, just his ball handling and shooting, and I don't know. I can't say this team reminds me of the 2000 team. There's not really the same kind of grit, I'll call it, the kind of, Flint,
Sure.
mentality. But I think Fears is a really special player.
Well, and Fears has that. The Joliet is Flint, I
Yeah.
mean, and so that and and when I talk about secondary ball handling being a problem, you go back to like the 98-99 team, which Izzo argues is good as the 2000 team. The backup point guard that year was a guy named Doug Davis. Wasn't that good. He wasn't as good as any of the guys. He wasn't as good as Ugo Chukwu, know.
Right.
So like, in a sense, you can get by with that. You just got to stay healthy.
Right.
And the Kohler development has been, I mean, the idea that Jackson Kohler as a senior would become part Xavier Tillman, part Joey Hauser.
Kenny Goins, maybe.
Kenny Goins, yeah. I mean, and he's better. I mean, if you look at his numbers, really Hauser is the only guy even close 3-point shooting of all those great. Like people romanticize these guys from the past, like the AJ Gray,
Adrian Payne was pretty good at
great. All those guys. None of them are shooting as well as Jackson Kohler. None of them did. It's at any kind of volume, and then he's rebounding at a level that Tillman did. Now he can't defend like Tillman. Tillman was a gift.
I asked Sutan about Kohler. I said, "What do you think?
Yeah.
Could he? Are you as good as he was?" And he goes, "I don't think so. He's a pretty good player."
Yeah. No, he is, and he's the physicality, the rebounding piece. And 2 years ago, he sat out when he got hurt, and then he comes back and he's still struggling to find his role. And I remember the conversation I had. I think they were at Northwestern, wherever it was. He realized that rebounding was the key. It was like a light bulb came on that if I don't rebound at an elite level, and he wasn't a great rebounder that year, but he was a lot better. It became like a mindset change for him.
Right.
Because when he arrived at MSU, it was the baby Joker, Djokovic, of throw the and that's he's still got some of that, but he's a different player than they recruited.
So I got 3 more questions or topics. Hopefully we're
good.
12:43. We're good. So the big question is how much longer for Iz, and I assume you don't have any inside information, right? Because you'd probably publish it, but
and I don't think he knows. I don't. So I've always said with him, the longer he coaches, the longer he'll coach.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like the idea is, I don't think he has anything else he wants to do. He's not going to go work at ESPN. He's not going to coach in the NBA.
Right.
He doesn't really have hobbies. Like this is who he is, and I think he likes being Tom Izzo. I think he likes who he is to the campus, who he is to the. So as long as he feels good, and the modern changes of the game don't bite him to a point that he can't stomach it. If you're an MSU fan and you're worried about losing Tom Izzo, beyond like his health or just deciding his getting old or whatever,
no acute situation, right?
Right. The big thing you got to worry about is a year where 4 or 5 guys just transfer on him, and it's like, you get 4 or 5 Trey Hollemans in a year that he doesn't see coming. He's got to rebuild the whole roster, and now he's doing what Illinois and Michigan have to do every year. I don't think he wants any part of that. As long as he can continue to build his program like he is right now, where he's some in the transfer portal, but a lot of freshmen developing, keeping guys. You lose a guy here or there, you bring in a guy here or there. I think he'll keep doing it a little while.
And let's assume for a minute that you're the AD, and Izzo walks in and says, "I'm done."
Yeah.
Who do you replace him with?
Well, you should start to make that list all the time, and I don't know exactly, but there are people out there that would be interesting. Do you want to do it internally? Does he have anybody on his staff?
Well, name 3 people that you.
Well, Jordan Ott, the Phoenix Suns coach, would be my first call that I would want to talk to.
Right.
Again, I don't know well enough whether he'd be the greatest fit in the world, but he's gone out to a mess in Phoenix and done well in year 1. He's a Michigan State guy, right?
Right.
That would probably be. I'd want to. I'd talk to Drew Valentine. They're struggling there. But I think one of the things that you have to remember at the mid-major level is NIL has gutted that. Like, it is impossible to sustain. So what you got to make sure is you're not turning your back on a really good coach who's just at a place you can't win.
Right.
You know? And so I'd want to talk to him. I'd want to talk to a guy like Borovich on the current staff.
Right.
I'd let the interview do some of the work.
Right.
I'd talk to Izzo because he knows which of these guys can do it. In terms of looking around, I don't know if a Nate Oates or that sort of thing works anymore.
Right.
Like he's a Michigan guy or whatever, but and it might. I would talk to a lot of people, but the guy who's intriguing, who's young, who's a Michigan State guy, who's doing a great job right now, that would be, I would make sure I had a conversation with, would be Jordan Ott.
Yeah, so not necessarily a clear path because he's in the NBA. I mean,
he is. And where does he want? What does he want his career to be?
Right.
I mean, and he's working for Ishbia as an MSU guy, and for Brian Gregory who's the GM there as an MSU guy. So he's got a good situation. He's got as they would say in the college level alignment, so to speak. But Ishbia may rather Michigan State win than his sons. He may. I think that's where you.
Two topics we can sort of blend them in. What do you think about the portal and NIL and what it's done to college athletics? You probably already talked about this at some point. You're probably on record. So,
yeah, no, I mean it's. I mean they're different things. Like I think one of the big mistakes was allowing the transfer rule without sitting out, the one-time transfer rule, and then the because that coupled with NIL was the problem. I don't think guys making money off, I don't think guys making money is the issue. I think it's their ability to leverage leaving and making money that has become the issue. And sitting out is not a punishment. It's not. You get a free education. It's not the punishment. The problem they had, though, when they did it is there were a lot of sports where you already didn't have to sit out. You can't tell people you have to sit out in football and men's basketball and women's basketball, but in volleyball they don't. Because they don't want people sitting around 5 years and taking up money in spots. So there was a hypocrisy there. I think there are lots of mistakes that were made. The NCAA ran a fairly oppressive system forever, where they basically threw people in jail for a $40 meal, right? And
Tiger Woods.
It was
got a lunch from Arnold Palmer, and they called him up.
I mean, that's exactly. It's just ridiculous. If they had the Olympic system years and years ago, where you could truly make money off your endorsements. And so a guy the Fab Five, for example, which, got in a lot of trouble for that stuff. But that was a cultural revolution.
Right.
They should have been able to make money off that.
Right.
If that stuff had existed beyond the salaries, this would have been a very different world they would have phased in. So, just sort of ethically, this is a backlash to it. And some of it's sort of a comeuppance, and it's deserved. We are getting to a point, though, where athletes and people who are advocates for athletes getting all they can have to understand that I do not believe college sports will exist as it is today in 25 years if they don't get a handle on it to the point that people can stomach it. Because what makes the whole thing work, the old system may have been oppressive, but we all loved it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drove us into it, right? That's what made us. And so if the people are 16 through 25 right now, people coming into college, if they don't connect with the athletes, if they don't have the same experience that alums who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s had, to where they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, giving back, coming back, caring as much, the whole thing goes away. And so you get a lot of national writers come out there. Well, look at the ratings; they're good. The playoffs fun. Of course, the ratings are good. Look at this. That's a short-sighted way of looking at it. To me, if the connection to the players goes away, ultimately, and there's concerns at the smaller levels, like in college basketball, you got 365 Division I schools, right? Well, if 300 of them can't live the dream anymore, those fan bases stop. If you're a fan at Southern Illinois University and the NCAA tournament's on and your school's not in it, you're still engaged because that's the dream and you've been there and you want your school to get back. If you no longer think you can get there, you tune out. You take yourself away from it. And if you lose those fan bases over time, it'll become a problem. So they've got to get control of it to a point where the system is everybody can be behind again. And so they're going to have to get to probably collective bargaining. They're going to have to get to a way that everybody understands who's a free agent, who's not, who can be signed. And we all sort of, there are lots of things that aren't fair in sports that we put up with. English soccer is probably the closest thing to college sports. But I love it. Lots of people love it. But I understand the rules. I understand what's happening. I understand the contracts. I understand you can sell player for this or this, whatever. They need to get to a place where there's a firm understanding of what is and what's allowed, and there are consequences for not following that, both from teams and the players, and then you got to hope people can stomach it enough to love it. Because if they don't,
I hate the idea of a player having to sit out. I hate the idea of it, and I honestly think that the stability that they brought to a lot of these players who now have money to go to the games. Their family can go to the
Sure.
games. You know, they don't have to worry about rent or food or, you know, a car. You know, it makes their life a lot easier in a lot of ways. And we really don't see that many problems here at Michigan State with any of the student athletes, do we?
I mean, no. I mean, you get. Well, I mean, they may have guys who don't understand they have to pay their taxes or they're in fast cars and throwing away their money. But everybody throws away their money when they're young, right? So I don't think that's a true issue.
I'm talking about the drinking and the going to the bars.
Oh, and that stuff existed before that. You're 20, 21. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
I'm
not,
just saying you hardly see it at all.
No, I don't think any of this stuff is. People should be paid what they're worth.
Right.
And people should have the opportunity to make what they want. You know, I mean, and the sit out thing. You know, and I probably could have been convinced you can transfer. Obviously, graduate transfers be able to play right away.
Right.
Maybe you can transfer once. You come someplace, you're 17 years old, you don't love it, you make a different decision. The transferring every year stuff, if we're going to call this college sports, is
might be a little much. I can't. What did we only get Divine this year as a transfer?
It was like his sixth school, but he actually has a degree along the way from Mississippi State. Not Divine. Trey Fort. Sorry.
Oh, Trey Fort.
Trey
right.
Fort.
And don't you think the people have warmed up to him or not?
100%. And he's a guy who, like, that's the thing. Not everybody fits in a box of what you think of these guys. And he actually has a degree from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
You know, and so this whole system. Now, I have questions about how hard it is to get a college degree with some of these guys who are going. You know, I mean, if you're doing 1 year at Mississippi State, it's a college degree, but
it's almost impossible to do basketball or football and actually
not graduate.
Well, no, it's hard to do both. I mean, most of us would struggle.
It is. There is a lot. There's a lot asked of these guys.
Yeah.
No, overall, I think a lot of what's happening to athletes is a positive. I just think they need to figure out what the system is going to be because it's not sustainable. And it's great that the athletes are making money now. They won't be making money in 25 years because there won't be money if they don't figure this out.
We'll see.
That's
you're on the record with that.
Absolutely.
This has been great.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.